In the silent moments between your thoughts, something ancient calls to you, not in words, but in signs, energy, and synchronicities. The universe is not distant or indifferent. It is alive, aware, and always in conversation with those who dare to quiet the noise within. When you learn to still your mind, you begin to hear guidance, clarity, purpose. They've been there all along. You simply must listen. This is not magic. It's presence, awareness, discipline, and deep trust. The universe speaks, just listen, is a transformative message guiding you to tune into the signals of life through stillness, clarity, and presence. The voice of the universe awaits your silence. Silence is often misunderstood. Most people equate silence with emptiness, with void, with nothingness, but this is far from the truth. Silence is not the lack of something. It is the fullness of everything that does not need to scream for attention. In silence, something deeper begins to emerge, something not bound by words or confined to logic. Within silence, life becomes more vivid. The sound of the wind, the beating of your heart, the rise and fall of your breath. These simple, unnoticed details begin to unfold in astonishing clarity. What was once background noise becomes the foreground of experience. Silence reveals what distraction conceals. It sharpens awareness and invites you into the richness of the present moment. Silence is a teacher. In its stillness, you begin to recognize how often the mind seeks escape through words, thoughts, and noise. But when you stop trying to fill the space, you begin to feel, and in that feeling, truths rise to the surface, not through explanation, but through realization. It is not what you hear in silence, it's what you become aware of. The modern world fears silence. We surround ourselves with constant stimulation to avoid confronting the depth within us. But silence is not a threat, it is a doorway. It opens you to your intuition, your inner guidance, and the subtle language of the universe. The more you practice being still, the more you begin to understand without needing proof. Silence is a mirror. It reflects your internal state with raw honesty. In noise, it's easy to hide from yourself, but in silence, you meet your mind face to face. The racing thoughts, the buried fears, the quiet truths, silence brings them all forward. And it is in seeing clearly that change begins. Silence is space, space to observe, to feel, to reset. When you're not reacting to external noise, you are free to respond from a place of clarity. In this space, you gain the ability to choose your thoughts, rather than be led by them. It is in this space that discipline begins and mastery follows. Silence is connection to nature, to breathe, to the deeper currents of life moving around and within you. When you sit in silence, you are not withdrawing from life, you are stepping deeper into its source. You feel what can't be said. You understand what can't be explained. Silence is not absence. It is intimacy with everything. Silence is presence. It is the art of being without needing. It is the strength to listen without rushing to respond. It is the courage to feel without running away. In silence, you stop reaching outward and begin listening inward. And it is in this stillness that the most powerful truths begin to surface. The universe does not speak in sentences or structured language, yet its messages are constant and clear, if you know how to see them. It speaks in patterns, repeating events, symbols, numbers, sensations. These are not coincidences, they are clues. When something keeps showing up in your life, it's a reflection of something inside you, calling for awareness, correction, or action. Energy is the universal medium. Every thought, emotion, and action carries a vibration, and that vibration becomes your signal, attracting experiences that match your frequency. When you are aligned internally, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, you begin to notice how effortlessly things fall into place. Opportunities emerge, people arrive, paths open. This is not luck, it is alignment. To understand the universe's language, you must become a student of rhythm. Everything in nature follows rhythm. the cycles of the moon, the tides of the ocean, the seasons of growth and rest. Your life too has seasons, moments of action and stillness, expansion and retreat. When you resist the natural flow, you suffer. When you move with it, you evolve. Patterns are messengers. The same conflict showing up in different forms, the same lesson repeating in different relationships. This is not the world being cruel. It's the universe teaching you what you have not yet learned. And once you recognize the pattern, you can choose differently. The pattern ends when the awareness begins. Energy speaks louder than words. You can feel when a place lifts you or drains you, when a person energizes you or leaves you feeling hollow. These feelings are information. Learning to trust your energetic responses is learning to trust your deepest intelligence. The mind may doubt, but energy never lies. Alignment is not about perfection. It's about authenticity. When your actions reflect your values, when your words match your intention, when your choices honor your truth, you create coherence. And in this state, you move in harmony with life itself. The universe does not resist authenticity. It responds to it. This communication is subtle. It requires presence and patience. The signs won't shout. They will whisper. A sudden pause in your day, a powerful dream, an inner nudge to go left instead of right. These are the ways life steers you. But if you are too distracted or too rigid, you miss the message entirely. The universe is always speaking, not in noise but in alignment, not in logic but in energy. Every experience you face is part of a larger design. Every moment is a message. When you start listening not with your ears, but with your whole being, you begin to understand what has always been guiding you. In a world constantly moving, stillness feels unnatural at first. But it is in stillness that the mind begins to settle, like muddy water becoming clear. As the surface calms, what lies beneath starts to reveal itself. Clarity does not come from rushing, it comes from stopping. And when you stop, even for a few quiet moments, the noise inside begins to lose its grip. Perception is more than just seeing. It is the ability to understand what you see. Stillness enhances this understanding. When you are still, your senses become sharper. You notice subtle cues in people's behavior. You hear the unsaid beneath spoken words. You feel the shift in a room's energy. Stillness deepens your intuition, and intuition is perception beyond logic. But stillness doesn't come easily. It must be practiced, and that practice is called discipline. Discipline is not force, it is devotion. It is the commitment to return to silence again and again, even when your mind resists. The more you practice being still, the more natural it becomes. It transforms from effort into ease, from habit into nature. Through discipline, you begin to move differently. You don't react impulsively. You respond with awareness. You don't chase noise. You seek clarity. This shift in behavior is where guidance begins to appear, not as loud instructions, but as quiet knowing. A sense of this is the way, without needing to explain why. The mind becomes your ally, not your master. When you've trained it through stillness, it stops running wild and starts pointing inward. You begin to trust what you feel, and more importantly, you trust when to wait and when to move. Discipline doesn't just refine your body, it hones your internal compass. Perception without discipline is scattered. You may see everything but understand nothing. Discipline gathers your energy, focuses your attention, and allows you to interpret the signs life is showing you. Without discipline, stillness is a moment. With it, stillness becomes a state, and from this state, guidance flows naturally. You don't need more information, you need more clarity, and clarity doesn't come from outside. It arises when you are still enough to notice what's already within. When your perception sharpens, you begin to see through illusion, fear, and doubt. You begin to act from truth, not confusion. True guidance is not loud. It's subtle, simple, quiet, but you'll never hear it if your mind is too loud. Stillness trains your perception, discipline sustains it, and from that space, a deeper intelligence begins to lead the way. There is a voice inside you that does not shout, does not argue, and does not fear. It's quiet, but unshakably clear. This voice often speaks in feeling, in impulse, in sudden knowing. It's not your thoughts, it's something beneath them. Deeper, older, wiser, most people mistake it for instinct or emotion, but it's far more profound than either. It is the subtle bridge between you and the intelligence that moves the entire universe. This voice is not created by you. It comes through you. It's not your ego, not your conditioning, not the result of past experiences. In fact, it often contradicts the noise of the world and the narrative in your mind. When you're quiet enough, when you've cleared the clutter, you begin to hear it clearly. And when you follow it, something shifts. There's less resistance, more flow, less confusion, more alignment. You are not separate from life. You are not a lone figure walking through an indifferent world. You are part of a vast, intelligent system that is always moving toward balance. Your inner voice is your unique access point to that system. It's your internal tuning fork. When you ignore it, you drift. When you follow it, you come home. Many people ask for signs, but ignore the one that lives within. That internal whisper, that gut feeling, that sense of yes or no, has saved you more times than you'll ever know. It speaks without proof. It acts without fear. It doesn't need to explain itself because it is rooted in something far beyond logic, truth. The challenge is that this voice is subtle, and it gets drowned out easily by noise, social pressure, opinions, fear, and overthinking. This is why practices like meditation, solitude, breathwork, and reflection are not luxuries. They are necessities. They help you clear the interference so the signal becomes strong again. You don't need to find this voice, you need to remove what hides it. When you honor this voice, you move with purpose. You stop seeking validation. You start making decisions that feel right even when they don't make sense to others. And life responds to that. Because when you follow your inner voice, you're in sync with the universe, not fighting it. You stop forcing, you start flowing. This voice is not just for your survival, it is for your evolution. It doesn't only tell you what to avoid, it tells you what to become. It leads you to the experiences, people, and paths that stretch you, refine you, and align you with who you truly are. It does not seek comfort, it seeks growth. You are not alone in your journey. The universe speaks to you, not only through the stars, the wind, or the silence, but also through your own inner guidance. That voice you've been taught to ignore is the most ancient, most reliable, most sacred compass you have. It is your direct line to something far greater. Your intuition is always present, steady, silent, and sharp. It doesn't disappear, it gets drowned out. Every distraction you allow into your space is like static on a radio. The more noise there is, the harder it becomes to hear the signal. And yet, most people live in constant distraction, scrolling, reacting, comparing, unaware that every moment spent externally scattered is a moment stolen from deep internal clarity. Distraction is seductive. It promises relief from discomfort, escape from uncertainty, entertainment in the face of stillness. But that comfort is shallow. Underneath it, you feel the disconnection, a quiet anxiety, a restless feeling that you've lost touch with something important. That something is your inner knowing, the voice that guides you when all else is unclear. Intuition does not compete for your attention. It waits, it doesn't push, it doesn't chase. When your focus is constantly fragmented, you forget how to listen. You start relying only on logic, on outside opinions, on instant gratification. And while those may offer short-term direction, they rarely lead you home. Only intuition can do that. To reclaim your intuition, you must reclaim your attention. This requires conscious effort, reducing noise, creating space, saying no to things that do not feed your spirit. Most importantly, it requires patience. The mind has been trained to chase stimulation. Rewiring it toward presence is a practice, not an event. You'll notice that the more still you become, the more clearly your intuition speaks. Answers begin to arise without searching. Decisions become simpler, not always easier, but more aligned. You begin to feel when something is right or wrong, not because someone told you, but because you know. That knowing is your most sacred guide. Distraction clouds your internal compass. You start mistaking urgency for importance, loudness for truth, popularity for wisdom. But intuition doesn't live in popularity. It lives in subtlety, in instinct, in energy. To hear it, you must become quieter than the noise that surrounds you, and that takes discipline. The war is not just against outside distraction. It's also against the inner distractions, fear, doubt, mental loops, unresolved emotions. These internal noises are just as disruptive. Facing them, not avoiding them, is the path to deep intuitive clarity. When you meet your inner chaos with presence, it loses its grip. You don't need to find your intuition. It's never left you. But you must clear a path through the noise to hear it again. Every time you choose presence over distraction, silence over noise, depth over speed, you come closer to your inner truth. And that truth is always trying to lead you where you are meant to go. The universe doesn't explain itself in paragraphs. It doesn't argue or repeat. It doesn't need to. When the universe speaks, it does so with clarity. Clean, simple, direct. It communicates through symbols, synchronicities, feelings, alignment. Its messages are not complicated. They are precise. But in order to receive them, you must first eliminate the noise within. Noise isn't just sound. It's mental clutter, emotional chaos, constant judgment, and the need to analyze everything. This noise becomes a barrier between you and the signals that are constantly being offered. It's not that the universe stops communicating. It's that your ability to perceive becomes clouded. And when your perception is blurred, confusion becomes your guide. Clarity, on the other hand, emerges when you stop needing everything to make logical sense. The universe doesn't operate on your timeline or follow your formulas. It moves with rhythm and precision that go beyond human understanding. When you learn to trust that flow instead of trying to control it, you begin to notice what was always there: guidance without noise. When something is meant for you, it won't feel forced. There will be a quiet certainty to it. You won't need to convince yourself. The more aligned you become with your internal clarity, the more aligned your external life becomes. This is how the universe speaks, not through drama, but through deep resonance. Many chase signs, but ignore silence. Yet silence is often the clearest sign of all. When nothing is moving, when everything feels still, that too is a message. Sometimes the guidance is to wait. Sometimes it is to rest. Sometimes the path forward is not to move, but to understand. Clarity is not always action. It is also stillness with purpose. When your mind is quiet, you can hear the subtle shifts. A sudden inspiration, a gentle pull in a new direction, an insight that arrives without thinking. These are not accidents. They are whispers from the universal intelligence, and they only arrive when you are tuned in. That tuning is not found in thought. It's found in awareness. To speak the language of the universe, you must first unlearn the language of force, control, and constant questioning. You must surrender the need to be certain before you act, and instead learn to move with what feels aligned. Clarity doesn't come from grasping. It comes from allowing. The less you seek noise, the more truth you begin to hear. The less you chase answers, the more they reveal themselves. The language of the universe is not hidden. It is ever present. But it requires you to match its simplicity, not by doing more, but by being fully here, fully aware, and fully open to its quiet power. Most people try to listen with strain, thinking that listening is about effort, about concentrating harder or forcing understanding. But true listening isn't about pushing, it's about receiving. Real listening begins when the mind stops trying to control what it hears and instead becomes still enough to notice what is already being said by others, by life, and by your own inner world. Attention is not something you simply have, it is something you must train. In a world filled with distractions, your attention is constantly being pulled in 100 directions. Every moment you scroll, multitask, or mentally wander, you weaken your capacity to be fully present. And without presence, listening becomes shallow. You hear the words but miss the meaning. You see the surface but miss the depth. Mastery of attention means learning to direct your awareness with intention. It means choosing where your mind goes and where it does not. It means being with what is happening, without judgment, without resistance, without the compulsion to react. This level of presence doesn't come naturally. It must be developed through stillness, through breath, through practice. When your attention is mastered, you begin to hear what most miss. You notice the energy behind someone's words. You sense the shift in a room's atmosphere. You catch the moment your own mind tries to escape from discomfort, and in catching it, you bring yourself back again and again. This is not effort, it's awareness. It's discipline softened into presence. Effort implies struggle. Listening should not be a struggle. If you are struggling to hear what life or another person is saying, it means your mind is too full, too loud, too quick to react. True listening happens when you step out of yourself, not away from your being, but away from your opinions, your expectations, your noise. It is a surrender to what is, not what you think it should be. When you listen from stillness, you begin to understand things without needing explanation. You feel the truth of something before the words even land. This level of listening connects you to a deeper intelligence, one that doesn't live in the thinking mind, but in pure awareness. You hear not only with your ears, but with your entire presence. Attention is your gateway to insight. The deeper your attention, the deeper your understanding. And when you listen from that depth, everything around you becomes a teacher. Silence, pain, nature, conflict, even your own breath. But if your attention is scattered, the lessons pass you by, unnoticed, unabsorbed. Mastery of attention does not require more energy. It requires less interference. The less you try to control, the more clearly you begin to hear. The quieter your inner world becomes, the louder truth speaks. Listening is not about effort. It is about surrendering fully to the moment, and in that surrender, you begin to hear what has always been speaking.